A Latina judge was driving home when police accused her of stealing her own car. But when she showed her ID, the truth not only shocked the officers, it ended her career forever. The sun was just beginning to set on a quiet suburban street when Judge Isabela Marquez guided her black luxury sedan through the tree-lined avenue. It was Friday evening, the end of a grueling week of hearings, paperwork, and tense arguments in her courtroom. She loved these brief moments of solitude when she could breathe without a gavel in her hand. But as she approached the intersection, red and blue lights suddenly flashed in her rearview mirror. A police cruiser was right behind her, sirens wailing, demanding her to pull over. At first, Isabela thought nothing of it, perhaps it was routine. But when two officers exited their patrol car, hands hovering near their holsters, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. She rolled down the window and greeted them politely. "Good evening, officers. Is there a problem?" One officer, tall and brusque, barely acknowledged her courtesy. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am, now." Confused, Isabela asked why, but the officer cut her off sharply. "This vehicle has been reported stolen." "You're driving a stolen car." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Isabela's heart skipped. Stolen? This was her car registered in her name, purchased outright with her hard-earned salary as a district judge. She laughed nervously, believing there must be a mistake. "Officers, I think you've confused me with someone else. This is my car. I have the registration and ID right here." But the officers weren't listening. The second cop leaned down toward her window, eyes narrowed, scrutinizing her face as though she didn't belong behind the wheel of such an expensive vehicle. His voice dripped with suspicion. "Funny, isn't it? People like you don't usually drive cars like this, unless something's off." Her chest tightened at the implication. She knew exactly what he meant. "People like you, Latina, brown-skinned, female." Her judicial robes and courtroom command seemed galaxies away in this moment, replaced with an ugly stereotype. They ordered her out of the car and onto the sidewalk. Neighbors peeked through blinds as the scene escalated. Isabela felt humiliation burning her cheeks. She wasn't just being stopped. She was being paraded as a suspect in front of the community she had sworn to serve. She asked calmly, "Please allow me to show you my identification. I'm Judge Marquez of the County Superior Court." But the taller officer smirked, shaking his head. "We've heard that one before. Everyone says there's somebody important." He called dispatch, reporting a suspect detained in connection with stolen vehicle. As Isabela stood with her hands visibly placed in front of her, she realized that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something deeper. They had already decided she was guilty before even looking at the truth. And for the first time in years, Judge Marquez, who had sentenced hardened criminals, faced down ruthless attorneys, and navigated the politics of law, felt utterly powerless on the side of the road. With every passing minute, Isabela's frustration grew. The officers riffled through her car, opening compartments and inspecting documents without even asking. She tried to maintain composure, her voice steady though her pulse raced. "Officers, the registration is in the glove box. My driver's license and judicial ID are in my purse. If you check them, you'll see everything is in order." The younger officer retrieved her wallet but didn't even look at the cards before tossing it onto the hood of the car. "We'll see about that once we run the VIN number," he muttered. Isabela clenched her jaw. This wasn't how the law was supposed to work. As a judge, she knew the protocols: reasonable suspicion, proper verification, respect for due process. What she was witnessing was a blatant disregard for the very Constitution these officers had sworn to uphold. Neighbors began stepping outside, whispering among themselves. A mother pulled her child closer as if danger lingered in the air. Isabela caught sight of her reflection in a window, hair slightly disheveled, hands out, surrounded by officers, and realized how quickly perception could distort reality. To everyone watching, she wasn't Judge Marquez. She was just another suspect. Finally, After what felt like an eternity, one officer announced, "Dispatch confirms, plates come back to a black sedan, but registered under a different name." Isabella's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The car is registered to me." She demanded to see the records, but they refused. Instead, they spoke over her, speculating aloud whether the documents had been forged. The taller officer scoffed. "You must have thought you were slick, driving around here like you owned the place, but you thought we wouldn't notice." Her temper flared. "Officer, I do own this car. I do belong here. And I will not stand by while you trample over my rights." She pulled her judicial ID from the wallet and held it up high. "Read it, out loud." The younger officer hesitated, glancing at the badge that bore her name and title. "Hun, Isabella Marquez, Judge, Superior Court." His brow furrowed, doubt creeping in. But the taller one waved dismissively. "Could be fake. People forge worse." Her hands trembled not from fear, but from fury. She realized this wasn't about evidence. It wasn't about stolen property. It was about her, about the assumptions they made the moment they saw a Latina woman in an expensive car. She felt her career flashing before her eyes, not because she was guilty, but because every second this scene dragged on, chipped away at the dignity she had built over decades. Every witness watching would remember the image of her detained, accused, disrespected. A seed of doubt would be planted, and in her profession, perception was power, and that was when Isabella made a decision. She would no longer plead for recognition. She would document everything, every word, every insult. If they wanted to challenge her legitimacy, she would finish not only this stop but their careers with the full weight of the law. The scene on the quiet neighborhood street had grown larger than Isabella ever expected. 2 more patrol cars arrived, lights flashing like a spectacle. By now, a small crowd of onlookers had gathered, phones out, recording. Some recognized her immediately, others only saw a Latina woman being accused of theft. The optics twisted the truth into a public theater of shame. Isabella's heart pounded, but she remained outwardly composed. Years on the bench had trained her to mask emotion in the face of provocation. Yet inside, she seethed. She was not just being accused of stealing her own car. She was being told, over and over, that her identity, her very existence, was invalid. "Ma'am, I'll ask you one more time," the taller officer barked. "Where did you really get this vehicle?" The insult sliced deeper than the accusation itself. Isabella looked him square in the eye. "I purchased this car legally, paid for with my salary as a superior court judge, and every second you refuse to acknowledge that is another second you expose yourself to liability for unlawful detention." The officer smirked, leaning close enough that she could smell his aftershave. "Big words. But on the street, your fancy title doesn't mean much." Her patience broke. She raised her voice loud enough for the neighbors and the recording cell phones to hear. "Then let the record show. Officers of this department are detaining Judge Isabella Marquez, Superior Court, without probable cause, ignoring state-issued identification, and humiliating me before the public." The younger officer shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the growing crowd. The murmurs grew louder. Someone in the back whispered, "Isn't that Judge Marquez?" "I've seen her on the news," another muttered. "They're messing with the wrong woman." But the tall officer doubled down. He placed handcuffs on her wrists and declared, "You're under arrest pending verification of ownership." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Phones zoomed in closer. Isabella felt cold steel tighten around her skin. The humiliation was complete. For a moment, her vision blurred with rage and shame. But then clarity struck. This was the breaking point not of her dignity, but of theirs. They had crossed a line so bold, so reckless, that even those blind to injustice would see the truth. Through clenched teeth, Isabella spoke with lethal calm. "Officer, you just made the last arrest of your career." At the precinct, Isabella was processed like any other detainee. Fingerprinted, mugshot taken, personal belongings placed in a plastic bag. Officers whispered among themselves, some chuckling, others uneasy. Word spread quickly. The woman in holding wasn't just another suspect, she was a sitting judge. The captain arrived within the hour, eyes wide with disbelief. Isabella, what on earth happened? Still in handcuffs, she met his gaze. Your officers claimed my car was stolen. I showed them my ID. They ignored it. They arrested me in front of half the neighborhood. The captain turned on his men, fury in his voice. Is this true? Did you verify her documents? The younger officer stammered. She claimed to be a judge. Sir, we thought it was fake. The taller one stood firm, arms crossed. Her story didn't add up. We had a report of a stolen vehicle, black sedan, matching plates. We acted in good faith. Isabella cut in sharply. Good faith does not excuse unlawful detention, racial profiling, or public humiliation. I presented judicial ID, registration, and a driver's license. You ignored them all. The captain rubbed his temples. He knew this wasn't just a mistake. This was a catastrophe. Judges were not untouchable, but mistreating one in such a brazen way could topple an entire department's credibility. Within minutes, her car records were rerun, this time correctly. The error became clear. Dispatch had mismatched her plate number with a stolen car reported 3 counties over. A clerical error. Yes, but one that should have been corrected the moment she presented valid identification. The captain ordered her immediate release. But Isabella wasn't finished. She demanded her phone back and immediately began dictating into its recorder, detailing every step of the unlawful arrest. She called her clerk to file a formal complaint and then her attorney to prepare a lawsuit. The younger officer looked pale, realizing the gravity of what had just unfolded. The taller one, however, remained defiant. So what? Mistakes happen. She get over it. Isabella turned to him, her eyes sharp as daggers. You don't understand, do you? This wasn't a mistake. This was arrogance, prejudice, a willful refusal to recognize truth because it didn't fit your assumptions. She stepped closer, her voice ice cold. And I will make sure the world knows it. News broke within 24 hours. Video clips of Judge Marquez being handcuffed and declaring her title on the street went viral across social media. Headlines blared. Superior Court judge arrested in her own car and police accused Latina judge of auto theft, evidence ignored. The story ignited national outrage. Civil rights groups demanded accountability. Television anchors replayed the footage. On primetime, commentators pointed out the obvious. If a judge could be treated this way despite credentials and authority, what chance did ordinary citizens have? Within days, the police department issued a public apology. The younger officer resigned under pressure. The taller officer who had mocked and arrested her was suspended, then terminated after internal review. The captain himself faced scrutiny for the department's culture. But for Isabella, the damage was already done. She returned to her courtroom the following week, but something had shifted. Lawyers, clerks, even defendants looked at her differently, not with less respect, but with a kind of pity. She hated it. The gavel still felt heavy in her hand, but her heart was no longer in it. One afternoon, after adjourning a case, she sat alone in her chambers. The walls were lined with law books and accolades, but the memory of steel cuffs on her wrists overshadowed them all. She realized that she could no longer serve as a neutral arbiter of justice, not when her own trust in the system had been shattered. At the next press conference, Isabella made her announcement. Standing at the podium, cameras flashing, she sobbed, I have dedicated my life to the pursuit of justice, but justice is not blind, it is broken. My experience has shown me that even those sworn to uphold the law can abuse it when prejudice clouds their vision. Today, I step down from the bench not in defeat, but in protest. I will continue my fight, not from the courtroom, but as an advocate for systemic reform. My career as a judge ends here, but my work for justice is only beginning. The crowd erupted in applause, and just like that, Judge Isabella Marquez closed the chapter of her judicial career yet opened a much larger one as a symbol of resistance, resilience, and the fight against injustice. The officers had tried to strip her of dignity, but instead, they gave her a platform. Her legacy would not be that of a judge confined by the bench, but of a Latina woman who transformed humiliation into a call for change, finishing her career on her own terms.